MTC. Unit 07 No Analysis. Comma. The known fact of contingencies, without knowing precisely what those contingencies will be, shows that disaster preparation is not the same thing as disaster rehearsal. No matter how many mock disasters are staged according to prior plans, the real disaster will never mirror any one of them. Disaster preparation planning is more like training for a marathon than training for a high jump competition or a sprinting event. Marathon runners do not practice by running the full course of 26 miles, rather, they get into shape by running shorter distances and building up their endurance with cross-training. 2.6. If they have prepared successfully, then they are in optimal condition to run the marathon over its predetermined course and length, assuming a range of weather conditions, predicted or not. This is normal marathon preparation. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 07 No 01. Comma. The creative team exhibits paradoxical characteristics. It shows tendencies of thought and action that we'd assume to be mutually exclusive or contradictory. For example, to do its best work, a team needs deep knowledge of subjects relevant to the problem it's trying to solve, and a mastery of the processes involved. But at the same time, the team needs fresh perspectives that are unencumbered by the prevailing wisdom or established ways of doing things. Often called a beginner's mind, this is the newcomer's perspective. People who are curious, even playful, and willing to ask anything no matter how naive the question may seem because they don't know what they don't know. Thus, bringing together contradictory characteristics can accelerate the process of new ideas. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 07 No 02. Comma. Author Elizabeth Gilbert tells the fable of a great saint who would lead his followers in meditation. Elizabeth Gilbert. Just as the followers were dropping into their Zen moment, they would be disrupted by a cat that would walk through the temple meowing and bothering everyone. The saint came up with a simple solution. He began to tie the cat to a pole during meditation sessions. This solution quickly developed into a ritual. Tie the cat to the pole first, meditate second. When the cat eventually died of natural causes, a religious crisis followed. What were the followers supposed to do? How could they possibly meditate without tying the cat to the pole? This story illustrates what I call invisible rules. These are habits and behaviors that have unnecessarily rigid feed into rules. Although written rules can be resistant to change, invisible ones are more stubborn. They're the silent killers. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 07 No 03. Comma. In school, there's one curriculum, one right way to study science, and one right formula that spits out the correct answer on a standardized test. Textbooks with grand titles like The Principles of Physics magically reveal the principles in 300 pages. 300. An authority figure then steps up to the lectern to feed us the truth. As theoretical physicist David Gross explained in his Nobel lecture, textbooks often ignore the many alternate paths that people wandered down, the many false clues they followed, the many misconceptions they had. David Gross. We learn about Newton's laws as if they arrived by a grand divine visitation or a stroke of genius, but not the years he spent exploring, revising, and changing them. The laws that Newton failed to establish, most notably his experiments in alchemy, which attempted, and spectacularly failed, to turn lead into gold, don't make the cut as part of the one-dimensional story told in physics classrooms. Instead, our education system turns the life stories of these scientists from lead to gold. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 07 No 04. Comma. If creators knew when they were on their way to fashioning a masterpiece, their work would progress only forward. They would halt their idea generation efforts as they struck gold. But in fact, they backtrack, returning to versions that they had earlier discarded as inadequate. In Beethoven's most celebrated work, the Fifth Symphony, he scrapped the conclusion of the first movement because it felt too short, only to come back to it later. 5.1. Had Beethoven been able to distinguish an extraordinary from an ordinary work, he would have accepted his composition immediately as a hit. When Picasso was painting his famous Guernica in protest of fascism, he produced 79 different drawings. Guernica, 7-9. Many of the images in the painting were based on his early sketches, not the later variations. If Picasso could judge his creations as he produced them, he would get consistently warmer and use the later drawings. But in reality, it was just as common that he got colder. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 07-05. Over the centuries, various writers and thinkers, looking at humans from an outside perspective, have been struck by the theatrical quality of social life. The most famous quote expressing this comes from Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, / and all the men and women merely players, / they have their exits and their entrances, / and one man in his time plays many parts. If the theatre and actors were traditionally represented by the image of masks, writers such as Shakespeare are implying that all of us are constantly wearing masks. Some people are better actors than others. Evil types such as Iago in the play Othello are able to conceal their hostile intentions behind a friendly smile. Othello Iago. Others are able to act with more confidence and bravado, they often become leaders. People with excellent acting skills can better navigate our complex social environments and get ahead. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 07-06. On one occasion I was trying to explain the concept of buffers to my children. We were in the car together at the time and I tried to explain the idea using a game. Imagine, I said, that we had to get to our destination 3 miles away without stopping. 3. We couldn't predict what was going to happen in front of us and around us. We didn't know how long the light would stay on green or if the car in front would suddenly put on its brakes. The only way to keep from crashing was to put extra space between our car and the car in front of us. This space acts as a buffer. It gives us time to respond and adapt to any sudden moves by other cars. Similarly, we can reduce the friction of doing the essential in our work and lives simply by creating a buffer. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 07-07. Crowdfunding is a new and more collaborative way to secure funding for projects. It can be used in different ways, such as requesting donations for a worthy cause anywhere in the world and generating funding for a project with the contributors then becoming partners in the project. In essence, crowdfunding is the fusion of social networking and venture capitalism. In just the same way as social networks have rewritten the conventional rules about how people communicate and interact with each other, crowdfunding in all its variations has the potential to rewrite the rules on how businesses and other projects get funded in the future. Crowdfunding can be viewed as the democratization of business financing. Instead of restricting capital sourcing and allocation to a relatively small and fixed minority, crowdfunding empowers everyone connected to the Internet to access both the collective wisdom and the pocket money of everyone else who connects to the Internet. MTC. Good job. Let's start. MTC. Unit 07-08. Humans are omnivorous, meaning that they can consume and digest a wide selection of plants and animals found in their surroundings. The primary advantage to this is that they can adapt to nearly all earthly environments. The disadvantage is that no single food provides the nutrition necessary for survival. Humans must be flexible enough to eat a variety of items sufficient for physical growth and maintenance, yet cautious enough not to randomly ingest foods that are physiologically harmful and, possibly, fatal. This dilemma, the need to experiment combined with the need for conservatism, is known as the omnivore's paradox. It results in two contradictory psychological impulses regarding diet. The first is an attraction to new foods, the second is a preference for familiar foods. MTC. Good job.